There are places in the world where compasses misbehave, but one location stands above the rest. A ruined desert fortress, lonely, silent, surrounded by nothing but wind and sand. A structure known as the Ribat Fortress, built over 1,000 years ago, and somehow made of stone that bends magnetic fields. Soldiers reported it. Travelers swore by it. Scientists confirmed it. And yet no one truly understands it. Tonight, we investigate the strange case of walls that twist a compass and the forgotten fortress that should not have magnetic power at all. The earliest formal record comes from 1893. A French colonial patrol crossed a barren stretch of desert. They stopped at the ruins of an old fortress to rest. One officer opened his compass to recalibrate direction and watched the needle swing toward the wall, not north, not even close. He walked across the courtyard. Near one section of the inner wall, the compass needle turned sharply left. At another corner, it rotated halfway around. The soldiers assumed the compass was broken until they tested 3 more. All showed the same behavior. The official report stated, "A magnetic source of unknown origin is embedded within the stonework." The officer underlined one word in his notes: unnatural. Decades later, in 1937, a geological team visited the site. They chipped small samples from the fortress walls and tested them in their field lab. The results were disappointing, or perhaps even more mysterious. The stone was sandstone, ordinary sandstone, with tiny traces of iron, but nowhere near enough to cause magnetic interference. Yet when a compass was placed beside an untouched section of the wall, the needle trembled and rotated. When placed next to the extracted stone samples, nothing happened. Outside the fortress, no anomaly. Inside the fortress, a compass could not be trusted. It was as if the magnetic effect existed only while the stones were assembled. Local Bedouin tribes have their own story. They say the fortress once served as a waypoint for ancient travelers, but something was wrong with it. They called it the place where directions die. According to legend, a caravan attempted to navigate by the stars while camping beside the Ribat. But when the travelers checked their compasses, the needles spun in circles. After sunrise, they tried to leave. They walked in what they believed was a straight line, but found themselves back where they started. The legend claims the fortress pulls men back toward itself, not physically, but by confusing their sense of direction. Modern researchers believe it was simply disorientation, but combined with real magnetic anomalies, the story takes on a haunting edge. During the Cold War, Soviet military geophysicists quietly surveyed several regions with unusual magnetic readings. The Ribat Fortress was one of them. Their notes, declassified in 1991, describe something striking. The magnetic pull near the fortress walls did not match the Earth's magnetic field. It angled inward toward specific segments of masonry, as though something inside the wall was generating its own field. Even stranger, in some places, the compass bent horizontally, in others, vertically, as if something above or below the observer was pulling the needle. The team wrote, "This structure demonstrates organized magnetic behavior inconsistent with natural rock." Organized, not random. When modern researchers scanned the fortress in 2006, they found that the anomaly wasn't uniform. Only certain stones produced the effect, roughly 5% of the structure. And even among those stones, the magnetic strength varied wildly. Some pulled the compass a few degrees,
Some pulled it 90 degrees. One stone spun the needle completely around. These hotspots were not symmetrical, not evenly spaced, not placed in any logical pattern. Almost as if the effect was unintentional, yet the exact stones responsible had remained perfectly aligned for centuries. One theory suggests the fortress was built atop a buried iron vein. If true, it could explain part of the anomaly. But ground-penetrating scans revealed no such formation. Instead, they found something unexpected. A thin horizontal layer of compacted stone, running under the fortress like a shallow platform. Not iron, not metallic, but aligned almost perfectly with the magnetic hotspots above. Was it intentional? A foundation? A ritual structure? Or just coincidence? No one knows. But the alignment is too precise to ignore. In 2014, researchers performed a simple but revealing test. They walked slowly along each wall segment, holding a high-precision compass. The compass reacted only when moving, never when standing still. If the observer paused, the needle settled after a moment. But as soon as they resumed walking, the needle jerked again, like a metal detector, pinging on buried targets. This meant the anomaly was not fixed. It responded to motion. A magnetic field that changes with movement is deeply unusual. Some kind of induction? Resonance? Unknown. The final note of the research log simply read, "The fortress is not passive."
In 2017, a new experiment brought the mystery into sharper focus. Researchers removed one of the hotspot stones carefully without damaging it and placed it on the ground outside the fortress. They brought a compass close. Nothing. The stone was entirely non-magnetic. They returned the stone to its position in the wall. Within minutes, the compass needle began trembling again. The stone was magnetic only when part of the assembled structure. Like an inactive component in an electrical circuit, powerless alone, alive when connected. Scientists called it the Magnetization Paradox. During nighttime measurements, researchers detected a faint hum beneath the fortress. It was a low-frequency vibration, barely above the threshold of human hearing. It lasted approximately 9 seconds, then vanished. It wasn't seismic, it wasn't mechanical, it wasn't wind. Microphones placed at ground level recorded the hum again 2 hours later, identical in pitch and duration. The sound came from beneath the central chamber of the fortress. One researcher later wrote, "It resembles resonance, as if the structure is responding to something underground." In the archives of a Middle Eastern university, researchers found a reference to a study performed in 1972. The document mentioned magnetic interference inconsistent with geological material, but the full report was missing. Not misplaced, removed. Someone had signed it out decades ago and never returned it. Only one page survived. A hand-drawn diagram showing 3 strong magnetic zones along the north wall, connected by arrows. What the arrows meant, no one knows. Some speculate the study concluded that the fortress was built deliberately to channel magnetic flow. But without the report, the truth remains hidden. A team in 2019 performed one of the most systematic tests ever conducted. They walked the entire perimeter of the fortress, holding a compass suspended by a thin thread. As the observer moved, the compass spun faster. When the observer stopped, it slowed. But here is the strange part. The direction of rotation changed depending on which side of the fortress they were standing on. North wall, clockwise pull. South wall,
counterclockwise. East wall, weak rotation. West wall, violent twisting. The fortress did not deflect compasses in one direction. It created a rotational field around itself. This was not random. It was patterned. Some historians believe the fortress may have once served a very different role, not military, not defensive, but ceremonial navigation. In early Islamic architecture, ribats were spiritual outposts, places where travelers prayed, meditated, and oriented themselves before long journeys. A rotating magnetic field would make no sense militarily, but spiritually. Perhaps it symbolized disorientation before clarity, losing one's path before finding it again, a ritual of surrender before purpose. This theory is controversial, but the fortress's strange magnetic behavior aligns with passages in ancient texts about the circle that turns the traveler back to the truth. Coincidence? Maybe, but the magnetic pattern fits too well to ignore. In 2021, new ground scans revealed something astonishing. Beneath the fortress lies a rectangular cavity, roughly the size of a small room, filled not with air, but with compacted sediment. Not a natural cave, not a storage room, something older. Magnetometers showed spikes directly above this chamber. This suggests the magnetic anomaly might originate not from the walls themselves, but from interaction between the chamber and the fortress, like two components of one device, separated vertically. If true, the Ribat Fortress was not simply built on the land, it was built with the land. A bold theory emerged in 2022. Researchers suggested the fortress acts as a passive magnetic resonator, a structure that amplifies weak magnetic fluctuations and channels them along the walls. Not electrical, not mechanical, just geometry and stone. Sandstone normally can't do this, but the specific arrangement of stones, the hidden chamber beneath, and the orientation of the walls might produce a rare, natural resonance effect, not engineered deliberately, but discovered accidentally, and then built upon. If true, the Ribat Fortress might be the ancient equivalent of a natural magnetic antenna. After more than 100 years of reports and studies, one conclusion rises above the rest. The fortress is not passive. Its stones are inactive alone, yet powerful together. Its walls pull compasses differently depending on position. Movement triggers magnetic response. A chamber beneath resonates like a tuning box. Historical legends speak of disorientation and return. Everything points to one truth. The Ribat Fortress behaves less like a pile of stone and more like a system, a magnetic system. Whether intentional or accidental, natural or engineered, one thing is certain. The compass does not lie. The stone truly bends it. And the desert fortress remains one of the most intriguing magnetic anomalies in human history.